Today, our teacher taught us about a place called Africa. She say our mamas come from Queens over there. That means that we, royalty.
This week on Talking About the Movies, we're wrapping 2023 up by taking a look at the bold new take of Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple with a brand new twist. We'll take a look at that, plus...
Let's just tell everyone we're together.
What?
Could be kind of fun.
There's no way we can convince anyone we actually like each other.
Trust me. We're at a wedding, a million miles away from home. Who knows what could happen?
Gee, I don't know, maybe every bad romantic comedy cliche ever. Yeah, we'll take a look at the stars of Top Gun Maverick and Euphoria, Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney and Anyone But You. A double feature this week to wrap up the year on Talking About the Movies. So welcome to the last Talking About the Movies episode for 2023. And let's just say that we're going out on a pretty interesting note. As always on the show, we talk about the biggest new releases of the weekend, and of course on Christmas, we had two big new releases come out. The remake of The Color Purple. We also had Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell in the comedy Anyone But You. So we'll take a look at both of those movies today, and then we'll kind of wrap up all the movies I looked at this month, and then look forward to 2024 by having shows next week, and the week after that, looking back on the movies of 2023. I'll do more into that in just a little bit, but... let's not waste any more time and get right to it. Let's start off with the biggest of the two new releases, and that is, of course, The Color Purple. So The Color Purple is the second film adaptation of the novel by Alice Walker, and it follows this woman, Salil, who's an African-American woman living in the American South during the early 1900s, and the story is basically her lifelong struggles of being an African-American woman living in the South during the early 1900s. And, this was previously adapted by Steven Spielberg in 1985 and was kind of seen as a groundbreaking turning point for his career because it showed that he could do not just the typical action movie blockbusters and all that, but he can do pretty much any type of movie if you give him a good script to work with. I mean, the original Color Purple was such a unique film in that way, and it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like an Oscar bait cliche type film where they do this and it just really doesn't work in the get-go. It's one of those movies where they make those cliches work very well because the movie is so well made and you have a great cast to work off of. Whoopi Goldberg's first starring role in this is pitch perfect. The music by Quincy Jones is well done. It could get a little too sappy at times, but it is a movie that shows what Steven Spielberg is capable of as a director as a whole. And he kind of let that go in the latter half of the decade. Yeah, let that overcome him a little bit, because the movies he made after that, Empire of the Sun and Always, weren't the best movies, but they weren't as good as some of the works he did before, and especially not as good as this movie, The Color Purple, is. So this movie in particular, I thought was kind of interesting, because it's not really a remake of the original film. It's more of a remake mixed together with the stage musical, the same name, the stage musical that came out in, I think it might have been around 2005, I think. Yeah, 2005 was when that came out, 20 years after the original film. And this time you have an assortment of different people involved, including Fantasia Barrina from American Idol, who was also in the Broadway musical. You also have a lot of notable names in here. Taraji P. Henson, Danielle Brooks, Coleman Domingo, Corey Hawkins, H.E.R, Halle Bailey, Louis Gossett Jr., Sierra, John Baptiste, Aunjanue Ellis. Just an incredible cast in this movie. And I was going into this not really knowing what I was going to expect, mostly because I didn't know what kind of a remake this was going to be. I'd never seen the stage musical before, so I can't really say anything about the differences between the stage musical and the actual movie itself. But I will say this, though. For a movie that could be sold as somewhat of a remake of the original film, it does a pretty good job of standing out on its own. I was actually really impressed at how much I enjoyed this movie. I mean, the original Color Purple I thought was a really great film on its own merits, but this is a movie that's good enough on its own where it can really stand out on its own and not feel like a ripoff of something that had already been done before. Like, you actually get a lot of effort out of this movie that really, they are taking more chances in this particular film than they were in the other movie version of The Color Purple. Like I read on here that it isn't just a direct copy and paste version of the storyline. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking a little bit too much in here. I was going to say it kind of reminded me a little bit of the West Side Story remake we got a couple years ago, which I thought was phenomenal. I like that it made its own unique version of that storyline. I think that one does it a little bit better than this particular version does, even though I really do like this one a lot. I really do really enjoy this movie a lot. It's mostly because of the performances. You have a lot of great performances here. Fantasia Barrino, she really is given it her all. Like, I know she played this in the stage musical, but she really shows that she would have had a future as a leading actress if they'd given her more roles to work with here. Maybe this will actually be the starting point for that. But Taraji P. Henson's going to be always great in the movie, even when it's a bad movie. I can always see her, and like she could definitely put a lot of effort into the role she's in. I've always been a big fan of hers, all the way back to like The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, even in a show like Empire, which was not that great to begin with. She rules that show. Like, she is the centerpiece of that show, and that makes it somewhat more watchable than it has any right to be. Danielle Brooks is a great actress. I've seen her a lot from Orange is the New Black. Corey Hawkins is a great actor. We just saw Halle Bailey this year in The Little Mermaid, showing what she can do as an actress, and I think she does it very well here. Sierra plays the older version of her character here. Never really seen her in a lot of acting roles before, but I thought she did okay here. Ajane Ellis, what more do I need to say about her? John Baptiste, Louis Gossett Jr., David Allen Greer, Dion Cole, just a phenomenal cast to work with here. They even got Whoopi Goldberg back in a cameo in here, and I read that it was kind of a surprise to everybody that she was in here, but she was in the original film. In fact, I would have been surprised if she didn't show up in there. It's kind of like what happened when The Office was going off the air, and nobody really thought that Steve Carell was coming back for the last episode. I mean, how could you not? And then, sure enough, there he is, and he delivers one of the best moments in the episode, and probably the best moments in that season, even though there was a great season in general. But it wouldn't have surprised me it would have surprised me more if Whoopi Goldberg didn't come back for this one, honestly. But overall, yeah, I really found myself enjoying this one a lot. I think they did a very good job of distancing the original movie, the Steven Spielberg one, and this one enough, but keeping a little bit of the ebb and flow of what makes the story so special by giving it its own unique edge to it. So it's not just a straight up retread of the original film. It does take chances with it. Maybe not as many chances as like I said, with the West Side Story remake, which I think is a better film at least in my opinion it is. But this is still a really, really damn good movie. It's one that, honestly, it makes my best of the year list for this year much harder to figure out, because I really am debating I really have a hard time figuring out what movies I'm going to put in the top 10. Like, I have a good idea of what my top 5 in general is, but below that, any one of these movies I've seen, especially in the last couple of weeks, could really be in that list. Like, Godzilla Minus One is one that could be in there. This is one that could definitely be in there, but it's like, it just really has to come down to the wire for me personally, how I feel about these movies in particular. But if this isn't in my top 10 for the year, it's definitely going to be in the honorable mentions. No question about that, because this is definitely something that is worth the watch. If you love the original movie, even if you never read the original story, I think you can definitely find a lot here to really appreciate about it. I think the musical numbers are very well done. The production design is top-notch. The direction overall is very good. Great cast overall here. I think it's a really solid film. I can't recommend this one enough. If you haven't seen the original Color Purple, see that one first and then go see this one. But maybe even if you don't see the original Color Purple, I think you can still get a lot out of it on its own, just on that merits alone. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed this one a lot. I give this one a big thumbs up. I highly recommend checking it out. So that's The Color Purple. So let's go ahead and move on to the second film I looked at this weekend, and that is Anyone But You. So Anyone But You tells the story of these two people who, in the aftermath of a captivating first encounter, discovered that their initial fiery passion has inexplicably dwindled due to frosty misunderstanding. However, fate intervenes. Thrown together at an Australian wedding, a dreamy Australian wedding, they opt for a charade of coupledom. But sparks reignite among the sun-kissed scenery, forcing them to confront their true feelings and embrace a second chance of love, and yada, yada, yada. You've seen this story done before, and it's part of the reason why I have a lot of problems with this movie. But this is directed by Will Gluck, who I'm surprised to see from his filmography that I've liked pretty much all of his movies up to this point. Like, I liked Fired Up. I thought that was one of those big surprises from 2009. Like, it was a PG-13 raunchy cheerleading comedy. That should not work altogether, and yet somehow he found a way to make that work. Easy A, probably his best overall film, making a modernized version of The Scarlet Letter, and I thought that would work great. It showed what Emma Stone could be as a leading actress. It was one of her best movies. Friends with Benefits I thought was really good, even though it was the second comedy of this type to come out that year, and I thought No Strings Attached was the better film in general, but I liked that one a lot. I'm one of the few people that really liked the Annie remake. I thought that the trailers for it looked pretty bad, but the movie overall looked a whole lot better. I thought it actually worked for the most part. Not a great movie by any means, but then again, I was never a big fan of the original Andy movie to begin with. And then the Peter Rabbit movies are movies that you would never think would be any good, but somehow he found a way to make not but the first one, but the second one also worked pretty well. Even though I like the first one a lot more, the second one is surprisingly really good. So, despite the trailers for this looking pretty bad, I thought, okay, this guy has made a lot of movies that have trailers that have looked bad. So, maybe he could find a way to make this work. And this is based mostly, it's kind of like Easy A, too, where it's based off a classic story. That one being The Scarlet Letter. This time, it's Much Ado About Nothing. That's the inspiration for this. But, so I went in, hoping for the best, and, no, it just didn't work. It just didn't work for me. I never bought into the relationship between Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney, even though these are two really good actors. I like Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick. Sydney Sweeney, I've seen a lot on Euphoria. I think she was great on that show. I think she can be a really good leading actress. I think he could be a really good leading actor. But, man, this just falls into predictable territory so much that it just becomes detestable when it's all said and done. This is a really, really bad movie. I really did not like this movie one bit. I did not like this mostly because of the fact that this is a movie where the whole joke is, oh, these two are never going to get together. Have a connection. Oh, they're never going to get together. This is going to be, and it just falls into predictable, really badly put together rom-com scenarios. Like, you're going to have the third act breakup. You're going to have the big misunderstanding. You're going to have that moment where they get together at the end. And it's literally every single rom-com cliche, and there's just no effort put in to make it stand out or be funny whatsoever. This is a rated R comedy, too, in a year where the raunchy comedy came back in form with No Hard Feelings, produced by the same studio, Sony Pictures. And yet, this is the end result of it. Like, this is a film that just really craters and falls apart at the worst possible time. And it's just like, it just doesn't work as a whole. Like, first of all, you should not be releasing a movie like this around Christmas time. Like, raunchy comedies do not do well at Christmas time. I mean, this is not they probably did. Once in a while, you'll get one every now and then. But, like, especially back in the 80s, a lot of these movies did pretty well. But not today. Like, not in time. It's like, putting a raunchy movie, or even a horror movie in general, on Christmas weekend is usually a death sentence for this. That means the studio did not give a crap about it and just hoping for the best, that people that don't get, traffic from the theater coming in to see this because the other movies they wanted to see are sold out. But considering what kind of a year we've had this year, where there isn't a big Avatar or Star Wars like blockbuster, like, that's kind of hard to say. But really, this film fails to work because of a number of different reasons. One, I didn't buy the chemistry between the two leads. They're great actors. They're fine in the movie, but you're supposed to buy them as a couple. In a couple in a movie, you need really good chemistry. Even in a really bad movie, if the chemistry is good, we can buy into it. But this, you never feel like 1 second that these two really meant to be together, or you should like them in any way, shape, or form. They're just kind of forcing it on you. It's that emotion. It's kind of like the equivalent of emotional manipulation. Like when you have a movie that's trying to push an emotional scene on you that wants you to get an emotion out of you, and you're just like, no, dude, you're just trying to use my emotions for something that's really freaking stupid. And yeah, that's bad enough. The rom-com cliches completely just take me out of it altogether. It's all throughout this movie. I swear, if this movie did not have a major studio behind it, this probably clearly would have been a movie that would have gone to, the Lifetime channel, or even a Hallmark Channel movie of the week if they put some Christmas elements into it. I mean, it's that bad of a movie, and it runs way too long. It's only an hour. It's only about an hour and 10 minutes. Is about an hour and 40 minutes long, which doesn't seem like it's a bad thing, but it just drags on and on and on. And it's just not funny. There's not any moments in here where I was laughing. There's no moments in here where I thought this movie was really enjoyable. It just really let me down in so many different ways, and I really expected a whole lot more with this movie because of who was directing the film, who was in it, and the idea that they had here. And this is the first real movie from this director that I can honestly say that I really did not like. I really did not enjoy this film at all. There's not one single moment about this movie that I can take from it that I really do enjoy about it. And that's a shame because, like I said, I like this director's work. I like the cast they have on here. I just wish there was more to it. I wish there was something there that could really make me say there was some merit to this, but I just cannot. I mean, this is a really, really lackluster film, and this is a film that, kind of like with The Color Purple, this is a film that would easily be in the honorable mentions, for, at the very least, the honorable mentions for the worst of the year list, if not maybe in the top 10 worst. But again, like, it just really would have to depend on that. I have to look at my list again, but if it's not in my top 10, it's definitely in there for one of the worst movies of the year, hands down. I mean, this is abysmally bad. This is a really unfunny movie. It's a boring movie at times. It just doesn't deliver anything that they really could give you with this. Like, they don't really give you anything of worthiness, and it's just kind of like, it's just not worth it. It's not worth watching in the end. So, yeah, unfortunately, I have to give this one a big thumbs down. I really did not enjoy this movie one bit. I really wanted more from it, but unfortunately, it's one of the worst movies of the year. If it's not in my top 10, it will definitely be in the honorable mentions list. No question about it. So with that said, that's going to wrap up my review for this, for anyone but you. But before we go, let's take a look at the movies I looked at this past December. I gave a thumbs down to Wonka, probably the biggest letdown of the entire year. Maybe one of the biggest letdowns of recent memory, especially with the talent on board here. It's just a boring movie with a lackluster story, decent acting from Timothée Chalamet, a couple of good musical numbers here and there, and some pretty good set pieces, but too many cliched elements, a lack of interesting characters or experiences, and a performance by Chalamet that's fine, but I really thought he was trying way too hard to be the next Gene Wilder at times. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I wanted so much more from it. I hate saying it, but it was just a massive disappointment. Thumbs down. I gave a thumbs up, way up, to Godzilla -1. This is a film that really is in contention for one of the best movies of the year. A Godzilla movie that not only has great human characters, but characters and a good dramatic element that really keep you invested in the storyline, where you're not just rooting for Godzilla, but you're also rooting for the human characters to take care of Godzilla and work together to stop him, and it works really well. The visuals are incredible. The storyline is great. This is a contender for one of the year's best movies, and it really is something that you need to see to believe. It's really worth it. Godzilla -1, a definitely fun little surprise that came in December for me. I gave a thumbs down to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, a movie that finally ends the DCEU on a whimper after a pretty mixed bag of a year. I like Shazam, I like Blue Beetle, I really hated The Flash. This movie I just thought was just okay. It was just another Aquaman movie. It's just not just another Aquaman movie, but just another superhero sequel in general. Like, it didn't do anything to wow me. It didn't do anything to wow anybody, really. And it's a shame, because Jason Momoa is still doing pretty good in this role, but this is the last thing we're going to remember him for, and you kind of want more from it, but unfortunately that's just the way it is with now, and here's hoping that James Gunn turns this whole thing around in the end. So yeah, thumbs down, unfortunately, for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Thumbs up for Migration, which, you know, Illumination had a really good year in 2023 with the Super Mario Brothers movie, and now this. Really fun movie. Great voice work by Kamal Nanjiani, Elizabeth Banks, Danny DeVito, Awkwafina, Keegan-Michael Key, just to name a few. The animation is really incredible. It's a good, fun adventure movie. It's not anything too groundbreaking or anything too significant, but it's a ton of fun all the way through. I really had a great time with this. I definitely want to go check this out again at some point if I can in theaters. I highly recommend it. A thumbs up for me on Migration. I gave a big thumbs up to The Color Purple. Not quite as good as West Side Story was a couple years ago, but it does enough to take from the original stage musical of this to really make it something unique and stand out on its own compared to the 1985 Spielberg film. Great acting, great visual style, great music in general. I really enjoyed this one a lot. This is definitely in contention for one of the year's best movies. And last but not least, I gave a thumbs down to Anyone But You, a very boring, very uninspired romantic comedy that wastes a lot of good talents behind the scenes and in front of the camera. Will Gluck has made a lot of great movies, good fun movies in general, but Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney, they're two really good actors. I feel like they're going to have strong careers, but this is one of those movies that really misuses their talents altogether. Their chemistry isn't good. The jokes are your typical rom-com cliche jokes, and they're not really all that funny. It falls into rom-com cliche territory a lot, and it's just not an enjoyable movie. It's a really bland, boring film that just really... I have nothing really good to say about this one. This is one of those ones that's definitely in contention for one of the year's worst movies, easily. And so there you go. Those are the movies that I saw in 2023. So, where do we go now in 2024? Well, we don't really have a whole lot to look at over the next 2 weeks in terms of new releases. Like, I'm not looking forward to Night Swim, so I'm not going to go see that. Mean Girls I'll probably check out later on down the road, although I don't have my expectations high on that one, honestly. So, next week we'll start looking at the best and worst of what we saw this past year, or what I saw this past year. Next week will be my list of the 10 best movies of 2023. So that'll be a special show that will be here on this particular show, talking about the movies. And with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you had a good year. I hope next year's better for you, and next time I see you on this show, it'll be 2024. So thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, check out some of the other videos I've done. Hit the like and subscribe button. And with that said, have a happy and healthy new year, and I'll see you guys in 2024. So until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.